It's time for a tour of my backyard so I can show you what's in bloom, what's looking good. I'm going to start here with the Helene Rose of Sharon. Helene Rose of Sharon likes a bit more moisture than some of the other Rose of Sharons. And this has taken a beating during the recent heat wave we had, and we're actually still having it, so saying have is kind of more accurate than saying had. So one thing I want to show you is a lot of times on your Rose of Sharons, you will notice that some of the flowers, when they die off, they look like this. They come off immediately if you want to just take them off by yourself, or you can let them fall off naturally. But when you see them, don't panic. They don't mean anything. Just take them off, no problem. So if it was cooler weather out, I would come and pick out all of the yellow things, little empty seed pods, and get them off the plant. What I do instead is little by little, if I'm out here watering, I'll walk by a few of them and I'll take them off. But it's not really anything that's that urgent. But if you don't like the look, definitely you can take them off. I spy a Japanese beetle right there, you see him? That is the first one I've seen this entire season. Usually we get Japanese beetles around Father's Day, around mid-June. So I don't know if they're just super late this year or he's just hanging around, but honestly, the very first one I've seen. So I'm not that worried, I'll pick them off later. Usually the blossoms look more like this one here. They're more frilly. But if you notice, a lot of these petals on the flowers are looking almost like a daisy, and I think it's just because they got so darn hot. But the newer blooms will come out nice. Not worried. And as you can see, I have a lot of nice new buds. We gently staked this up to this shepherd's hook about 2 years ago, and we didn't use anything fancy. We just used some of the green Velcro tape people use to tie up their vegetable plants along different stakes and tomato cages and whatnot. And we did that just to keep it more from flopping. But as the plant's gotten older, it's a lot more sturdy, and I think it's because, as you can see, the stems down here have gotten a lot thicker. And what these aren't weeds. They're new, or newer, I should say. They started last summer. New Helene Rose of Sharon plants. So I'm letting them grow a little bit before I dig them up and think about where I want to replant them, because it's such a pretty, pretty shrub. Blossoms are so pretty. And for comparison, this is Lavender Chiffon Rose of Sharon. Now, this isn't sold directly from Proven Winners anymore, by the way. They have apparently an improved version called, I think it's called Dark Lavender Chiffon Rose of Sharon. But you can still find this sometimes at different nurseries that still have stock of this. I like this plant, except it's taken a long time to get to a decent size. Now, I won't blame the plant because I wasn't pruning it, and rabbits were. So about the first 2 or 3 years, rabbits were pruning this down during the winter, and then I planted daffodils all around it. So right around the time the rabbits are feasting, now they can't get at it, which is great. And I also put some tree protectors around the bottom in the wintertime. And again, below in the description area, you can see those tree protectors and what I do. Aren't they pretty? Now this is a good combination to show you. Cue the bee. So when the blossom hasn't opened yet, it almost looks like it has a bluish cast, doesn't it? So pretty. But once it opens, you can see the color is much more of a lavender with some fuchsia in the center and some frilly bits inside amongst the pollen. But I really love how the color looks on these blooms that are just almost like a blue. Really cool. Just pretty. Get in there and see the frilliness. So size-wise, just so you can see, the Limelight Hydrangea tree is probably easily about 10 to 12 feet, if not more, tall again, since I gave it a hard pruning about 2 years ago. But now, the tallest bloom is right there, so it's getting there. But it doesn't look anywhere near the 8 to 12 feet tall, which was what I was originally promised. So again, I know the rabbits were partly to blame, but it really seems like it's a much more thinner shrub in terms of it's not as wide. They sell Rose of Sharons that are called pillar Rose of Sharons, and I think that this almost resembles that. But it's very pretty, and I do love the color. And I will keep talking nicely to it and encouraging it to grow and helping it as best I can. Now, if you do want a more blue Rose of Sharon, they do sell blue chiffon Rose of Sharon. Proven Winners does. So that might be worth checking out. And yes, the Limelight Hydrangea tree is looking wonderful. Now, it's a little bit more spread out because we finally had some drenching rain the other day for about 2 hours. It poured like the heavens opened up. And so some of these branches are pretty low now. In fact, look how low these are. They're almost touching the little quickfire hydrangea below it. So what I am going to do is come out here, and I'm probably going to either just trim the flower heads off, because again, there's a video I'll link to above, and I'll put it in the description area below. Sometimes that's all you need to do is you clip the flower heads off, clip them, you know, right about here, and it's enough that it'll make the branch go up again. So I'll do that first. If that doesn't work, then I'll trim into the branch a little bit just to raise those up. But it's looking wonderfully well. The back of the tree still has some newer and smaller blooms on it, but it's still not as filled in as the front of the tree is. And it's just because of the way the sun hits it. This is more shady. Don't get as much back here. So that's something to keep aware of, because if you just look at it from the front, it just looks like a really wide tree, right? But you see these branches that are on the left and the right are ones that I just got to be a little bit aware of so that they don't break under a weight of future storms. What's also interesting is usually for me, the blossoms at the very top, the flower heads there, are the first to bloom. As you can see, they haven't even really opened up yet. It's really been a weird summer. Usually these guys down lower bloom later. But this year it was the opposite, so go figure. Down here, the Candy Love Hellebores are happy in the shade. They're just a nice evergreen plant for the summer. And they also get shade from the little quickfire hydrangeas. I planted these little quickfire hydrangeas last summer, in the beginning of the summer. I planted 2, and then I planted 2 more. And these replaced some mophead hydrangeas, and again, I was having trouble with black spot. There's a popular video on this channel talking about black spot and what causes it. Again, I'll link to that in the description area below. So these will eventually get 3 and 5 feet tall and wide. 3 to 5 feet tall and wide, I should say. And you got this stem right here that already wants to get higher. But they look really pretty. I like them, they're easy care. I haven't had to touch them. Barely gave them a pruning this year because this is the start of their first full season in the ground. And right now they just have that beautiful white, very vintagey looking, lacy looking effect with all their petals. And like I said, you got some Limelight Hydrangea blooms saying hello. And you're just starting to see the slightest tinge of pink on these. So these hydrangeas form an easy care hedge. Over time, they'll grow a little bit into each other. Really pretty. Like I've said before on prior videos, what I think I love the most about these is when I say they're easy care, I'm not just talking about that you don't have to fuss over the flowers. The leaves just do not get black spot. They can really handle the heat and humidity quite nicely. Hey, look, it's a redbud stick. If you've seen prior videos, you know that I planted a redbud stick, as I call it, last year. It was supposed to be a bare root plant and it didn't do anything, but I left it in the ground because I just thought maybe it's slow. And you know what? Look how thick this is now. I lobbed off the top, which I could tell was dead. But it's putting out more leaves. It had some pretty blooms on it in the spring. So I'm leaving it and we'll see what happens to it. Hopefully, it'll keep growing. We shall see. But the redbud stick is a more respectable stick. It's got some leaf damage here or there. Some insects have chewed on it. But I'm not really concerned. I'm just leaving it. Better to not fuss over it and just let it get settled in. And this, of course, is Verbena Bonariensis. So in this blue pot is either a little quickfire hydrangea or a quickfire hydrangea. I don't know which. The problem is I ordered it from Home Depot last summer. And what happened was that the plant tag said quickfire hydrangea, which is the taller version. But the pot that it was in, which was a Proven Winners pot, said little quickfire. So I don't know which I got. I talked to Proven Winners about it and they said they, unfortunately couldn't help me either. But they also don't really carry quickfire anymore. My intent originally was to put the quickfire up front where the Firelight hydrangea is in the front yard to kind of have a taller quickfire next to a shorter one. I thought that would have been really cool. But alas, that's not to be. So I don't quite know what this is going to grow into. So I'm keeping it in a pot for now until I figure out which type it might be, and then I'll figure out where to plant it. But in the bed, this is my pride and joy. It's kind of replacing my love of Pinky Winkies. Don't tell the Pinky Winkies that. This is a Firelight hydrangea. Look at those white blooms. That is stunning. So I've got 4 stems that decided they wanted to be taller this year, which is great. I'm loving it. But most of these are still on the shorter side. This will get to be 6 to 8 feet tall and wide. And it is just so beautiful. Not only do I love how white these blooms are, but the color that it develops as it goes into the fall. Now here you see some of the pink on the leaves. And it did get a tiny bit of leaf scorch during the heat wave. But what's going to happen is this really turns into a color that makes it glow. It really does look like it could be on fire. So I cannot wait for that. And it's worth the wait because, as you can see, this plant is just so pretty. And you see down here, some of these are already starting to turn to a pinkish color. And right next to them is Lavender Phenomenal. And this is blooming later than the Lavender Phenomenal I have in the front yard because I pruned this back. I gave it a hard pruning, but not until June. And why I gave it a hard pruning is I'm trying to keep it very low, very compact, and not develop the woody base that lavenders can develop. And I do have a woody base, oh do I ever, in the front yard. So I do not want that to happen here in the back. But the Lavender Phenomenal is just beautiful. Pollinators love it. And I like the combination of the lavender with the hydrangea. Two easy care plants. So you have some gold Euonymus. It's pretty variegation. You have some of the Verbena. And then you've got the beautiful greenery of the totally Tangerine Geum. It's basically done for the moment. I just came out and deadheaded it the other day. And probably as we get more into the early fall, I'll start to get more flowers again. Kind of dies down in the heat of the summer, and oh, we've had heat of the summer. Here are the sad, half-dead, half-baked Kramer's Red Winter Heaths that don't like to be transplanted, but I transplanted these anyway into this bed to see if that would help. I totally plan on digging these up, and I bought popcorn roses, popcorn drift roses to plant here, but it's been too darn hot, so I gotta wait for that. But that's what's gonna go there. And then next to that is another Lavender Phenomenal. And again, you can see I'm trying to keep this low, and it's just starting to put out some blossoms. And behind the lavender is another little lime punch hydrangea. But I think that this one is not going to put out any blooms this year. This is the one that was really dead when it arrived after being missing in action for 3 weeks in a FedEx truck. So I'm just happy that I've got green, healthy leaves and that it's getting better established this year. And hopefully next year I'll get some blooms. And here's an Amsonia storm cloud, which had pretty blue flowers, very pale blue in the springtime. And it's just getting established. Eventually this is going to be a pretty decent-sized perennial. Almost some people will consider it a shrub. But it's going to take its time getting to that height. And this, of course, is the Prairifire Crabapple tree. And after its amazing spring show, what you're left with are a ton of these little tiny berries. Last year I didn't have many at all because it was a newly planted tree. But boy, do we have them this year. And the birds really love coming in here and picking them off, which is great. I love that they don't really fall to the ground. If they do, they're very tiny. And if they do, they mostly land in this bed, which is also a plus. And next to the gold mop cypress are true blue butterfly bushes. That's the name. And you can see by the color, they're definitely true blue. So yesterday I came out here in the morning and I gave them a deadheading. I'll give myself about a B+ for the deadheading job I did. I didn't get everything, but I tried to do as much as I could in 10 minutes, like I suggest to you guys to do when it's a big hot heat wave. Are any heat waves not hot? So there's still some that, kind of got baked so that I could deadhead off, but I wanted to at least tidy it up a bit, and it already looks so much better. Pollinators love this. And I do too, not only for the gorgeous blue color, but the honey scent. I can't even describe it to you. I wish I could, but the honey scent is worth it alone to buy this plant, or I think most any butterfly bushes have a honey type of scent. Just wonderful. I definitely think I want to propagate these. I'd love to plant more of these, and I think that's what I'm going to try. Someone had asked me about, can you propagate butterfly bushes? And you can. So I think I'm going to see if I can do that. probably next year. And back here is one of my favorite evergreens. This guy is so beautiful. And you can prune it to just about any width you want. So I'm able to keep this pretty thin, but it's gonna grow tall, at least 5 feet, and I'm looking forward to it. I can already tell. I'll put a picture from last year so you can see a size comparison, because I can already tell it's growing. But I just pruned the sides up a little bit. There's a fellow gardener that watches my channel that commented on one of my videos about this shrub, and they said that they keep theirs as a wonderful Christmas tree every year, which I think is a great idea. But I love that the color of this is very similar to the blue-green colors of the butterfly bushes. And as it gets taller, it's going to be a really pretty contrast with the gold mop cypress. And last but not least, I wanted to give you an update on these 2 gold cone junipers. They're both in pots. There's one down there. So these were looking pretty sad in one of the front yard beds. And it was because they weren't getting as much water that they needed. So what was happening is the whole bottom dried out. And you can see back here, it's still pretty dried out. But it has filled in so much since we planted these last year. So we give them water a lot. And they still have a little bit of brown here and there. But I haven't pruned them. I didn't prune any of the brown stuff out. I just wanted to leave it be. Let it get established. And look at all this nice new growth. Isn't that pretty? So here's the other one, and from this angle you can see that it really got shot in the back. I mean, that's where it really died out a lot. So I'm kind of keeping that in the shade so it can kind of start growing back nicely without the additional burden of the hot sun. You can see down here, there's a few pieces of new green growth. Pieces, stems, needles. But again, I'm not touching any of that dead stuff yet. I'm just leaving it. It filled in a lot this year, and hopefully it'll continue to do well. So back here you can see there's kind of a mix between dead needles and live needles. And some may say this looks like it's half dead. I'll say it looks like it's half alive. It's kind of like taking the glass half full approach. But all this used to be dead, and another reason I'm leaving the branches is, who knows, maybe some new growth will come on them. So these are looking good, and I'm very happy that we didn't toss them, that instead we helped them rebound and survive nicely. So that's it for today's tour of the backyard. I'm Laura from Garden Sanity, and I want to thank you very much for taking this tour with me. Stay cool and happy gardening.